Section 19. Issuance of Certificate of Registration and Professional Identification Card. A certificate of registration shall be issued to those who are registered after payment or fees prescribed by the Commission. A professional identification card bearing the registration number and its validity and expiry date, duly signed by the chairperson of the Commission, shall likewise be issued to every registrant who has paid the prescribed fees and has submitted a certificate of membership in good standing from the APO. Section 20. Refusal to register. The board shall not register any successful applicant for registration with or without licensure examination who has been, number one, convicted of an offense involving moral turpitude by a court of competent jurisdiction. Number two, found guilty of immoral or dishonorable conduct by the board. Number three, adjudged guilty for violation of the general instruction to examinees by the board. Number four, declared of unsound mind by a court of competent jurisdiction. Section 21. Revocation or suspension of the certificate of registration and cancellation of temporary or special permit. The board shall have the power upon notice and hearing to revoke or suspend the certificate of registration of a registered and licensed environmental planner or to cancel a temporary or special permit granted to a foreign environmental planner for the same grounds enumerated in Section 20 of this Act. Section 22. Filing of charges. Any person, firm, or association may file charges against any registrant in accordance with the provision of Section 21, or the board may investigate violations of any of the above-mentioned provisions. Section 23. Reissuance of revoked certificate of registration, replacement of lost or damaged certificate of registration, professional identification card, or temporary or special permit. The board may, upon petition, reinstate or reissue a revoked certificate of registration after 2 years from the effectivity of the revocation, which is the date of surrender of the said certificate or the professional identification card to the board or the commission. Practice of environmental planning. Section 24. Vested rights. Licensed environmental planners registered when this law is passed. All environmental planners who are already duly registered with the board under Presidential Decree number 1308 and are holders of valid professional identification cards issued by the Commission and who are in good standing with the APO of environmental planners, that the effectivity of this act shall be deemed automatically registered under this act. Section 25. Consulting firms, partnerships, corporations, associations, and foundations engaged in environmental planning practice. A consulting firm, partnership, corporation, association, or foundation may engage in the practice of environmental planning. Section 26. Use of seal. All registered and licensed environmental planners shall obtain a seal of such design as the board shall authorize and direct, provided that the serial number of the certificate issued by the board shall be included in the design of the seal. Section 27. Continuing professional education. The board, in consultation with the academe and the APO, shall prescribe guidelines in the implementation of its continuing professional education. Foreign reciprocity. A foreign citizen may be allowed to take the licensure examination and may be given a certificate of registration and professional identification card if he or she can provide that the country or state of which he is subject or citizens allows a Filipino environmental planner to practice his profession within its territorial limits on the same basis as the subjects or citizens of such foreign state or country. Section 29. Special or temporary permits for foreign environmental planners. Section 30. Information required on plans. The environmental planners shall be required to indicate his certificate of registration and PRC identification card, APO certificate of membership, and professional tax receipt numbers, date and place of issuance and expiry on all plans and other documents signed by him. Section 31. Unlawful practices under this Act. It shall be unlawful for any person or group of persons to offer or render planning services as defined in Section 4 or within the scope of Section 5 of this Act where he is not registered and licensed environmental planner. Amend, revise, duplicate, or make copies of plans, designs, programs, and other documents prepared, signed, and sealed by a registered and licensed environmental planner without his or her explicit and written consent. Section 32. Accredited Professional Organization of Environmental Planners, or APO. All registered and licensed environmental planners shall organize themselves into one national organization that is duly registered with the Securities and Exchange Commission or the SEC. The board, subject to approval by the Commission, shall accredit the said organization as the one and only accredited national organization of registered and licensed environmental planners. All environmental planners whose name appeared in this registry book of environmental planners shall automatically become members thereof and shall receive thereto all the benefits and privileges upon payment of APO membership fees and dues. Article 5. Enforcement of this Act and penal provisions. Section 33. Enforcement by government officials and officers of the law. It shall be the duty of all government officials and duly constituted law officers of the national, provincial, city, or municipal government to assist the board and the commission in enforcing the provisions of this Act and to cause the prosecution of any person violating the same. Section 34. Positions in government with environmental planning functions. The Civil Service Commission shall create positions and set qualification standards for environmental planners at various levels in government service, including government-owned and controlled corporations and other entities. Section 35. Civil liability of environmental planners. The environmental planners in charge of the preparation of an environmental plan and related documents, as well as other members of the planning team involved in the preparation thereof, may be held civil liable in case of serious, large-scale, or wholesale damage, failure, or destruction of any project subject of or covered by an environmental plan. The result is significant adverse impact on affected stakeholders or the concerned ecosystem within a period of 10 years from the time of implementation of such. Section 36. Penal provisions. Any person committing any of the unlawful practices under Section 31 hereof or any of the following acts shall, upon conviction, be sentenced by imprisonment or not less than 6 months nor more than 5 years, or a fine or not less than 100,000 nor more than 500,000 pesos, or both at the same time. Article 6. Transitory provisions, or Section 37. Transitory provisions. Within a period of 3 years from the effectivity of this Act, local government units may continue to issue appointments to persons who are not registered and licensed environmental planners for the position of national or local planning and development coordinators or chiefs of local planning and development officers, only on a temporary status or acting capacity. Article 7. Final provisions. Section 38. Appropriations. The chairperson of the commission shall immediately include in its programs the implementation of this Act, the funding of which shall be included in the Annual General Appropriations Act and thereafter, or the so-called GAA. Section 39. Act not affecting other professions. These acts shall not affect or prevent the practice of any other legally recognized profession. Section 40. Implementing rules and regulations. The board, subject to the approval of the commission, shall prescribe, promulgate, and issue the implementing rules and regulation of this act. After consultation with the APO, other agencies and concerned private organizations within 120 days from the constitution of the board. Section 41. Separability clause. If any part or section of this act shall be declared unconstitutional, such declaration shall not invalidate the other provisions hereof. Section 42. Repealing clause. Presidential Decree number 1308 is hereby repealed. All other laws, orders, rules, and regulations or resolutions or part thereof inconsistent with the provision of this act are hereby repealed or amended accordingly. Lastly, Section 43, Effectivity. This act shall take effect 15 days following its publication in the Official Gazette or in 2 newspapers of general circulation in the Philippines. And that ends my discussion.